In this video, you will see the basic camera controls on a digital or a DSLR camera. Mr. Puchi Venkat is going to show us the various camera controls on a digital camera. Let's go over to Mr. Puchi Venkat.
Now the main controls, to recap, will be the manual where you do all the settings, the AV, which is the aperture value where you prioritize by setting the aperture and the camera decides what shutter speed to set. Then you have the TV or S, the time value or the shutter speed, where you prioritize by setting the shutter speed and the camera will decide what aperture to set. Then you have the P position, which is the program, where the camera will decide what aperture and shutter speed to set. Of course, you still have the choice of setting the ISO. Then you have the green auto mode, where everything is set by the camera, including the ISO, the aperture and the shutter, thereby just converting it into a good point and shoot camera. So these are all the basic controls that are available on the DSLR for you to begin shooting with. Let me explain to you the controls on the rear panel of a typical DSLR. One thing to keep in mind is that each camera model will have a different layout, and it varies from not only brand to brand but model to model. But essentially most of the controls remain the same, but maybe they will have different words or different symbols. So here is a camera that is typically a simple one to operate with basic controls. So we begin with a button that actually works with the video and the live view shooting. What we mean by live view is the fact that you can actually see what you are shooting on the LCD screen here and then decide whether your composition is good or bad, whether you want to remove certain elements or put them in. And today most of the DSLRs are also shooting video. So that is why you have a small red dot over there which says that this is the button that you also use to start the video recording and stop the video recording. Then we go to another control which is available on almost all cameras as a separate button. Do you notice that there is a square with a diagonal line and a minus symbol at the bottom and a plus symbol on the top? Now this is a very interesting and important control because it allows you to overexpose or underexpose the picture just before you click. And if the camera has decided on a particular exposure, it all depends on what you are setting from the aperture or the time or manual. You can actually override that setting and make the camera overexpose the picture or underexpose the picture according to your wishes. So this I would consider a very significant button. This particular model has got this Q, which also means that it is a quick menu. What it does is to bring up a lot of menu options directly on the screen, which you can access without going into the main menu. So it allows you to very quickly do the settings. Here again this model has got a separate button for white balance. When you press this button, it brings up a small combination of pictures that tells you whether you wanted to put it under tungsten light or whether you want it in sunlight or shade, or whether it is going to be under fluorescent light or any other combination of light sources. On the right side you have a button by which you can tell the camera to go into the timer mode, where you can actually press the shutter button and the camera will click after 10 seconds. It gives you enough time to run and join the group. Or if you are planning to do some sports photography, you can also tell the camera to shoot multiple pictures. So you keep the shutter button depressed and you can see these multiple squares and they keep shooting click, 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 click. It goes very, very fast, multiple exposures. Then on the left side or to the right side here, you have a button that says AF, that means autofocus. So you can actually control the autofocus mode of the camera, whether you want it to focus continuously, whether you want it to focus once and lock, all that can be set over here. Now this particular camera model has got a button with those small squares at the bottom, which means that when you press this button, it allows you to decide how do you want the picture to come out finally. Do you want it a little warm? Do you want it a little strong in colors? Do you want a black and white? Or do you want those extra big colors that make it look as if you have done a painting? So this is called the picture mode. Then this is the playback button. When we mean playback, it also means you are playing back pictures, which means you are viewing the picture. So you can actually see a square with an arrow pointing to the right. Now these symbols that you see next to the buttons are all universal symbols, which mean that all camera models, irrespective of what brand it is or what make it is, will all have the same symbols with the same function. You also have what I consider a very, very important button, that is the delete button, which means that you can actually delete the pictures. It is not like the old days where you shoot film and you are stuck with all 36 frames even though you might want only 3. And I tell everyone, please use this button much more than the other buttons so that you have only pictures that you finally need. So this is the delete button. And if you go here right on top, you have 2 buttons here right next to each other. One has, in fact, they have magnification symbols, magnifying glasses with a minus on one and a plus on the other. Minus means the pictures will become smaller and smaller, so you can actually see a collage of pictures or what we call thumbnails. And you can easily scroll through all the pictures that you have shot on the camera. In case you want to enlarge a portion of any one picture to make out whether you have focused it correctly or whether there is any blur in the picture, you can use the side button which has got a plus within the magnifying glass, and it will enlarge the picture subsequently to show you how clear or how good the picture is. So these are all the basic controls on the camera which allow you to get into the menu and do the adjustments. Of course, in certain cameras you have other adjustments, like in this you have something called a plus and minus that we call a diopter adjustment. Most of the cameras today have it. The diopter adjustment allows people with different eye powers to view the picture correctly so that focusing is easier. And in this case you have what is called the menu and what is called the display. The menu button allows you to get into the main menu of the camera through which you can access all the settings available to you, and of course that varies from model to model. Here is a separate button called display which allows you to control what extra information is displayed along with the picture. Sometimes the extra information like shutter speed, aperture, grid, this, that, everything might seem a little cluttered from the original picture. So by pressing the display button, you can actually remove all the extra information and only the picture is displayed. But some of us would like all that extra information, so by using this, you can actually get all the displays in place. To recap, we have a lot of controls on the rear side of the DSLR. Most of them are common across all brands and all makes. Some are specific to certain models, but the ones that are common have the same function. So you can access your pictures, you can play them back, you can control what extra information is displayed, you can control the white balance, you can control the timer, you can control the shutter speed, you can also control the exposure, meaning you can intentionally overexpose or underexpose the picture. You can also control the diopter adjustment by which even a person with glasses can see the picture correctly. You have the menu button that allows you to access the main menu, and you also have a display button that actually tells you what extra information is there, and of course you have the delete button. That's what I consider the most important of the lot.
We hope that this video has helped you to understand the functions and the controls of a digital camera. With the knowledge of the camera, both theoretically and practically, you will be able to take the pictures that you want to. So, start experimenting and pick up your camera and start doing photography. That is the only way to learn.